Chosen one, stop scrolling right now. Do not move past this moment, and do not let your mind rush to explain it away. This is not coincidence, and this is not just another video crossing your screen. This is God's message, reaching you in exact divine timing, and the reason your attention locked in before logic could interfere is because something within you recognized truth instantly. You did not pause out of curiosity. You paused out of alignment. What you are feeling in your body right now is not imagination. It is recognition. And recognition is always the first sign that spiritual awakening has already begun. This video is about why your confusion suddenly intensified, why God is separating you from what once felt familiar, and why divine clarity is next. You have listened to countless messages, watched countless videos, and absorbed countless words, yet this one stopped you. Not because of volume, not because of drama, but because it carries resonance. God's message does not chase attention or demand belief. It settles into awareness. It confirms what you already sensed, but could not yet name. It meets you at the exact moment when your inner noise became too loud to ignore, and your old way of seeing could no longer contain who you are becoming. The mental fog, the emotional exhaustion, the sense that you are standing between endings and beginnings, the feeling that something is dissolving even though nothing is visibly gone, none of that appeared randomly. It intensified because separation had already started. What once made sense began to feel heavy. What once gave answers began to create questions. That is not instability. That is transition. This message exists to explain what is being removed, why it had to happen, and how clarity is quietly forming beneath the confusion. Stay with this until the end, because what you are about to hear will give language to what your spirit already knows. And once you see it clearly, you will never interpret this season the same way again. Chosen one, confusion often rises right before separation becomes visible. This is not punishment. This is preparation. God's separation is not the removal of love, support, or protection. It is the intentional clearing of what no longer matches your divine calling and chosen one path. When God begins to separate, familiarity starts to feel heavy. Old explanations stop working. What once gave certainty now creates questions. This is not loss. This is refinement, and refinement always precedes clarity. You may have wondered why things that once grounded you now feel distant, or why people, routines, or goals suddenly feel misaligned. That is not instability. That is discernment forming before understanding arrives. Spiritual awakening does not begin with answers. It begins with recognition. Recognition that something is shifting. Recognition that your inner awareness has outgrown old structures. Recognition that the war you feel inside is not weakness, but transition. If you feel this, comment 777 now. Not as a ritual, but as recognition. Alignment responds when acknowledged. Chosen one, the reason this confusion feels personal is because your calling is personal. Divine calling and chosen one paths are not generic. They require separation because clarity cannot coexist with constant noise. God separates before he reveals. He quiets before he instructs. And in that quiet, the mind often panics because it is used to control. But the spirit understands. The spirit knows that stillness is not emptiness. It is space being prepared. You are not imagining the tension you've been carrying. You are not losing your way, and you are not falling behind. What you are feeling is real, and it deserves to be named truthfully. The war inside you is not confusion without cause. It is friction. It is the pressure created when who you have been can no longer contain who you are now able to carry. Growth always creates tension before it creates stability. Light always meets resistance before it becomes steady. And that resistance is not a sign to retreat. It is confirmation that something real is forming. Your light is necessary, not because it is dramatic, not because it demands attention or validation. It is necessary because it is clear. Clear light does not shout. It does not compete. It does not need to prove itself. It cuts through distortion quietly and exposes what is real without force. That is why it faced pressure early. That is why it was tested before it was trusted. Light that carries truth without distortion must first survive resistance, otherwise it bends under weight. It was never trained to hold. So circle back to this truth now and let it settle deeply. This is a message from God. You were called deliberately and intentionally. What you interpreted as confusion was never failure. It was a signal that alignment was approaching and that the old structure could no longer support what was coming next. Confusion appeared because clarity was near, not because you missed your path. God's separation is active right now because protection is active. What is being removed is not being taken to harm you, but to shield you. Noise is being cleared, so instruction can land without distortion. Weight is being lifted, so movement can happen without collapse. This is not chaos. This is not urgency. This is not loss. This is grounded knowing, forming beneath the surface. Clarity is next, not as a rush of answers, but as inner steadiness. Not as pressure to act, but as certainty about when to move and when to remain still. And when it arrives fully, you will recognize it not by excitement, but by peace, by the absence of inner war, by the quiet confidence that you are exactly where you are meant to be, carrying exactly what you were prepared to carry. If this touched your soul, comment 111 because you know it now. You were called. Why confusion increased before it could end? Circle back to the beginning and ground yourself again in this truth. This is a message from God. You are not imagining what you have been experiencing. You were called, and calling always disrupts comfort before it establishes clarity. The confusion that intensified in your life was not a sign that you were moving backward. It was evidence that movement had already begun. Release from confusion is not an instant switch that flips overnight. It is a process of unwinding, loosening, and clearing what no longer belongs, so that what does belong can finally stand without distortion. Clarity cannot arrive while old attachments remain active. This is one of the most misunderstood aspects of spiritual awakening. Many expect insight to descend while everything else stays the same. But divine order does not work that way. God does not layer truth on top of clutter. He separates before he reveals. God's separation is not dramatic because it is precise. It works quietly, internally, dissolving attachments you did not even realize were shaping your decisions, expectations, and identity. That is why confusion increases first. The old structures are weakening, but the new ones have not fully formed yet. This in-between state feels uncomfortable because the mind craves certainty. Emotional fog, mental exhaustion, and the sense of asking the same questions over and over again are not signs of failure. They are signs of pruning. Pruning is not destruction. It is refinement. When God prunes, he removes excess growth so that what remains can carry greater clarity and strength. The tiredness you felt was not because you were incapable. It was because you were shedding layers that no longer served your divine calling and chosen one path. Worldly confusion and spiritual realignment feel similar on the surface, but they are fundamentally different. Worldly confusion scatters attention, increases fear, and pushes you toward external validation. Spiritual realignment draws you inward, slows you down, and forces honesty. It does not shout answers. It removes noise. That is why familiar solutions stopped working for you. That is why advice that once helped now feels empty. You are not lost. You are being recalibrated. Chosen ones experience longer seasons of uncertainty because their assignments require depth, not speed. Quick clarity produces shallow roots. Deep clarity requires time, pressure, and stillness. Those who are not called to carry discernment at scale are allowed to move faster because their decisions do not carry the same weight. Your hesitation was not weakness. It was responsibility forming before instruction. Divine calling and chosen one responsibility is not given suddenly. It is grown slowly, so it does not overwhelm the one carrying it. God separates before he reveals because revelation without stability creates confusion, not clarity. If insight arrives before identity is ready, it becomes overwhelming. So God allows the fog. He allows the questions. He allows the quiet stretching of your inner awareness. This is protection. You were not being delayed. You were being prepared to hold clarity without fear, truth without arrogance, and awareness without fragmentation. The war you feel is real, and it deserves to be understood rather than dismissed. It is the internal friction created when old alignment begins to collapse under the weight of new truth. What once fit no longer does. What once felt certain now feels restrictive. Resistance always rises at this exact point, because clarity threatens confusion, and confusion fights to survive. This does not mean you are doing something wrong. It means something false is losing its authority over you, and loss of control always creates noise before it creates freedom. Your light is necessary precisely because it was refined in this tension. It was not handed to you fully formed. It was shaped under pressure, tested by uncertainty, and strengthened through endurance. Light that has never known resistance cannot remain steady when others are lost in it. Light that has never carried weight cannot guide through darkness. What you endured was not excessive. It was precise. You were being trained to hold clarity without collapsing under it. Return again to the beginning and ground yourself in this truth. This is a message from God. You were called deliberately, not randomly. The confusion you experienced was not a detour from your calling. It was part of it. It slowed you down so discernment could form. It stripped certainty so wisdom could take its place. It forced you inward so clarity could become internal instead of borrowed. Release from confusion is already in motion because what once bound you no longer has the same power over your decisions, your emotions, or your identity. Old fears are losing influence. Old patterns are weakening. Old voices are fading. God's separation is active, deliberate, and protective, not because you were in danger, but because what you are becoming must be guarded. What is forming within you now will not be shaken by pressure. It will not collapse under responsibility. It will stand steady when clarity fully arrives, grounded in truth, strengthened by experience, and aligned with purpose. If this touched your soul, comment 111, because you know it. You were called. What God is quietly removing from your life. Circle back to the beginning and anchor yourself again in what matters most. This is a message from God. You are not imagining what is happening. You were called, and calling always comes with separation before it comes with clarity. What is being removed from your life right now is not being taken from you to punish you. It is being lifted because it can no longer travel with you into what is next. God's separation works quietly, not to shock you, but to protect you from clinging to what would eventually confuse you again. People, patterns, environments, and even versions of yourself that once felt familiar may now feel distant, heavy, or strangely misaligned. This is not because they suddenly became wrong. It is because you changed. Divine clarity does not negotiate with outdated alignment. When your awareness grows, what once fit begins to restrict. God does not always announce what He is removing. He allows you to feel the mismatch first. That discomfort is not rejection. It is discernment activating. Separation often feels lonely before it feels peaceful. That is one of the hardest truths for a chosen one to accept. Peace does not arrive the moment something leaves. Silence comes first. Space comes first. And in that space, the mind often tries to convince you that something has gone wrong. But loneliness is not the same as abandonment. Loneliness is the absence of noise. Peace is what fills that absence once you stop fighting it. God removes noise before He delivers instruction. This is how divine order works. If too many voices remain, guidance becomes distorted. If old expectations stay active, new clarity gets diluted. That is why conversations feel draining now. That is why environments that once energized you now exhaust you. That is why roles you once played no longer feel honest. God's separation is not random. It is targeted. It removes distraction so direction can arrive intact. Familiar things suddenly feel dull or heavy because they are no longer feeding your spirit. What once sustained you now requires effort to maintain. That is a sign of misalignment, not ingratitude. You are not ungrateful for outgrowing something. You are obedient for acknowledging it. Divine clarity demands honesty, and honesty often requires letting go before replacement is visible. The danger comes when you cling to what God is dissolving. Clinging creates resistance, and resistance turns refinement into suffering. When you try to revive what God is gently ending, confusion returns. Anxiety increases. Inner conflict deepens, not because you are weak, but because you are pulling against divine flow. Release is not passive. It is an act of trust, and trust is the foundation of every true calling. Obedience often looks like stillness before movement, and this is where many chosen ones become confused. The world teaches you that progress must be visible, that action proves faith, and that movement equals success. But divine order operates by a different rhythm. God rarely begins with motion. He begins with restraint, with pauses that feel uncomfortable, with seasons where nothing seems to advance outwardly, yet everything is being rearranged inwardly. Waiting is not inactivity when God is involved. It is alignment forming beneath the surface. Stillness invites observation. It allows what is unstable to reveal itself, and what is unnecessary to fall away without force. When you stop pushing, you begin to see clearly what no longer belongs. This is why divine instruction often arrives after silence, not noise. Stillness is not stagnation. It is precision. It is alignment settling into place, so that when movement does come, it does not create collapse. God prepares the ground carefully before He plants the next step, because what He is building through you must endure. This is not abandonment. It never was. God is not pulling away from you or withholding direction out of distance or disapproval. He is removing confusion from your environment and your inner world, so clarity does not have to compete. He narrows your path, not to limit you, but to protect you. A focused path allows truth to land cleanly. Wide paths invite distraction. God's protection often looks subtle, even uncomfortable, but it is intentional and precise. Your light is necessary, and necessary light must be protected from distortion. Light that carries truth cannot be constantly exposed to noise without losing focus. That is why isolation sometimes appears during refinement, not to punish you, not to separate you from others permanently, but to shield what is still forming. Isolation is not the destination. It is the corridor between noise and knowing, between confusion and clarity, between who you were and who you are becoming. Return again to the beginning, and let this truth settle deeply. This is a message from God. You were called. The war you feel is real, but it is not against you. It is for you. It exists to strengthen, not to destroy. Your light matters not because it was spared difficulty, but because it survived it. And what God is removing now is not leaving emptiness behind. It is making room for clarity that will not collapse under pressure, truth that will not bend under resistance, and alignment that will carry you forward with steadiness and purpose. If this touched your soul, comment 111, because you know it now, you were called. The shape of clarity that is coming next. Circle back to the beginning once more and let this truth settle without resistance. This is a message from God. You are not imagining what is unfolding. You were called, and what is coming next is not chaos, not confusion, not emotional overload, but clarity shaped by intention. Divine clarity does not arrive like a lightning strike. It arrives like steady ground beneath your feet. Calm, quiet, certain, not rushed, not dramatic, not overwhelming. And that is why many miss it at first. They expect noise when God brings stillness. Divine clarity feels grounded. It does not demand urgency. It does not create panic. It does not pressure you into instant action. Instead, it settles your nervous system. It brings a sense of internal alignment where decisions no longer require endless debate. You do not suddenly know everything, but you know enough. Enough to move without fear. Enough to trust yourself again. Enough to recognize what no longer belongs without guilt. That is how release from confusion completes itself. Not through excess information, but through discernment. Clarity arrives quietly because truth does not need to announce itself. When confusion ruled, your thoughts were loud. When alignment arrives, the noise fades. Discernment replaces confusion, not by giving you more options, but by narrowing them. You stop feeling pulled in 10 directions. You stop explaining yourself unnecessarily. You stop questioning every instinct. This is not emotional numbness. This is focus. Spiritual awakening matures here, not in heightened emotion, but in steady awareness. Alignment replaces anxiety in subtle ways. You begin to feel less rushed, even when life is active. You begin to sleep differently. You begin to respond instead of react. Situations that once triggered spirals now receive boundaries. This is not because circumstances became easier, but because your internal authority returned. Divine clarity restores self-trust, and self-trust is one of the clearest signs that alignment has stabilized. Clarity brings responsibility, not escape. This is where many misunderstand what they asked for. When confusion leaves, excuses leave with it. You can no longer claim ignorance when you feel truth internally. You can no longer blame timing when discernment is present. Divine calling and chosen, one responsibility emerges here, gently but firmly. You are not burdened with pressure, but entrusted with awareness. And awareness changes how you move through the world. Decisions shift first. You no longer choose based on fear, approval, or urgency. You choose based on resonance. Some doors close without drama. Others open without effort. Relationships change because clarity exposes imbalance. You stop overgiving. You stop shrinking. You stop explaining your boundaries as if they require permission. This is not arrogance. This is alignment in practice. Clarity also reshapes how you see yourself in ways that are subtle at first, but powerful over time. The inner conflict that once kept you second-guessing begins to soften. The constant inner debate quiets. The urge to explain yourself, justify your choices, or prove your worth slowly fades. Not because you stopped caring, but because you started trusting. Your direction no longer feels borrowed from outside voices. It feels internally confirmed. You move from seeking reassurance to recognizing truth. This does not make you rigid or closed off. It makes you anchored. And anchored people are not easily shaken by opinion, delay, or resistance, because their stability does not come from approval, but from alignment. When clarity arrives, it does not inflate ego. It humbles perception. You stop reacting to every challenge as if it threatens your identity. You stop interpreting resistance as rejection. You understand that not everything requires a response. This is maturity, not detachment. It is the quiet confidence that comes from knowing where you stand without needing to announce it. Clarity gives you the ability to remain present without being pulled apart by pressure. Preparing to receive clarity without fear requires releasing expectations you didn't realize you were holding. Many people believe clarity arrives as a reward for endurance, as if suffering earns certainty. But clarity does not come to comfort you. It comes to equip you. It arrives as a tool for service, responsibility, and discernment. Your light is necessary, and clarity ensures that light is focused rather than scattered. Focused light heals. Scattered light overwhelms. This is why the war came first. Light without clarity blinds. Light with clarity guides. The struggle you endured was not random, and it was not excessive. It refined your perception. It stripped illusion. It removed dependency on borrowed answers. It taught you to listen inwardly before reacting outwardly. Without that preparation, clarity would have overwhelmed you. With it, clarity steadies you. It does not rush you forward. It grounds you where you stand. Return again to the beginning and hear it without resistance. This is a message from God. You were called. The war you endured was never meant to break you. It was meant to remove what could not travel with you into truth. Confusion, separation, and stillness were not delays. They were the shaping process. Your light matters because it was refined through pressure, not spared from it. And what is coming now will not overwhelm your nervous system or fragment your focus. It will steady you. It will anchor you. It will allow you to move with intention rather than urgency, with discernment rather than fear. You are not stepping into chaos. You are stepping into clarity that knows how to hold you. If this touched your soul, comment 111, because you know it now. You were called. How to remain aligned as clarity fully arrives. Circle back to the beginning one final time and let this truth anchor you completely. This is a message from God. You are not imagining what has unfolded in your life. You were called, and now that clarity is arriving, alignment becomes your responsibility. The season ahead is not about rushing forward. It is about remaining steady while divine clarity settles into place. What God has revealed must be protected, not pressured. Staying aligned during this transition requires patience, even when excitement tempts you to act quickly. Clarity feels relieving after confusion, but relief does not mean haste. Patience protects clarity by allowing it to mature. When insight first arrives, it is tender. If you force movement too soon, you risk acting from emotion rather than discernment. God's pace is never late, and it is never rushed. Trusting that pace is an act of faith, not passivity. Forcing answers pulls you back into old patterns. Trusting God's timing keeps you grounded in truth. When clarity stabilizes, it no longer needs to be defended or explained. You feel it internally. That inner confirmation is how you know alignment is real. Spiritual awakening completes itself, not when everything changes externally, but when your inner authority returns quietly and consistently. Let clarity sit with you before you act. Let it shape your posture, your language, your decisions. Observe what continues to feel light and what still feels heavy. God's separation already showed you what does not belong. Now divine clarity teaches you how to move forward without carrying unnecessary weight. This is not about perfection. It is about honesty and consistency. This separation was necessary, even if it did not feel gentle while it was happening. Nothing was removed without purpose, and nothing left your life by accident. What walked away created space. What ended created alignment. What confused you prepared you in ways comfort never could. You were not delayed, overlooked, or set back. You were protected. God does not strip without intention, and He does not reveal without readiness. Every moment of uncertainty, every pause, every quiet unraveling was measured carefully for your capacity, not compared to anyone else's timeline or path. Chosen one, your light is necessary, and necessary light must be stable. It cannot flicker under pressure or scatter under opinion. Stability does not come from trying harder or proving more. It comes from alignment, from standing in what you know without needing applause. You do not need to prove what God has already confirmed within you. You do not need to convince anyone of what has been settled internally. Truth does not argue. It stands. Walk quietly now. Move deliberately. Let clarity lead you instead of urgency pushing you. There is a strength in calm movement that cannot be replicated by force. When clarity guides you, your steps become intentional, your words become measured, your presence becomes grounded. You no longer chase affirmation because alignment already holds you steady. This is what maturity in spiritual awakening looks like. Not distance from others, but depth within yourself. Not isolation, but responsibility to truth. Return once more to the beginning and hear this without doubt. This is God's message to you. You were called. The war you endured was real, but it was never meant to defeat you. It refined you. It strengthened you. It taught you how to stand without confusion and move without fear. Your spiritual awakening did not make you separate from others. It made you responsible to clarity, discernment, and truth. If you feel aligned with this message, comment 777 now, not for approval, not for validation, but as acknowledgement. You know why you're here. You were called. And if this touched your soul, comment 111, because you know it now. You were called.